Welcome back to Never Did It. Special episode today. We will not be looking back at the last 100 years of movies in an effort to fill in some of our movie blind spots. We're going to talk about a movie that everyone's seen, apparently, based on the box office, Deadpool and Wolverine. And then we're going to see where it fits in the now apparently finally finished Fox version of the X-Men universe. Jake, what did you think of Deadpool versus Wolverine? You just saw it yesterday.
Yeah, just saw it yesterday. I got a lot of laughs out of it. It's certainly never boring. There's a lot of stuff happening. There's so many fight sequences with so much blood and so many limbs flailing and decapitations and jokes flying a mile a minute, references and cameos. Also, by the way, we're gonna just spoil this movie endlessly, mostly because if anyone's listening to this, I probably already have seen it. So yeah, tons of cameos and all that. So there's always something happening. But if you stop and really think about a lot of it, or any of it for more than like a minute or two, it becomes like really hollow and pretty unsatisfying in the end. So, I mean, I had a good time, but I don't know. I don't think there's a lot of there for any revisitation for me anyway.
So I was really worried that you would really, really, really like it or really, really, really hate it. And then we'd argue, but it seems like we feel the exact same way. The best review I've seen of this movie is one sentence by a guy called Joe Cole, who I saw on Letterboxd. Follow him at Joe Cole, Kohle. And it said, "I laughed a lot, but what did it cost?" And that's what my soul feels like now. I was laughing quite a bit in the theater. I didn't laugh as much as the rest of my packed theater laughed, but I laughed at, I would say, I don't know, 50% of the jokes, which is a pretty good hit rate. Some of the okay, so you already said spoilers ahead. The Flame On Johnny Storm reveal, I cheered. I actually clapped my hands and cheered.
I literally forgot his Fantastic Four existed. So like I knew there was obviously going to be a joke there. He obviously wasn't Captain America, but I was kind of looking at like, what's going on here? Because I could not remember he was ever in a Fantastic Four movie.
That was a really good bit. And then Nice Pool near the end of the movie, just looking into the camera and saying, "The proposal." That's very funny, right? A lot of it did not land, just for me, apparently, because my theater was roaring. And I also lost faith in humanity near the end, not because of the movie itself. It was opening night. I went on Thursday night to see it. Not the part where the 20th Century logo appeared dead in the mud in the void, but later when the 20th Century Fox logo was like lovingly shown on the screen, people cheered. And I said out loud, "It's a company." I was furious at the manipulation of these people to cheer for a dead production company. Which also is
RKO Studios getting a lot of love these days.
And you know what's sad is you could probably get me to cheer for RKO because we're so far removed. Even though that's absurd. No one should be cheering for a production company sign. Whatever. Okay, let's talk about the movie. It's real funny. The cameos ranged from good, like Chris Evans' Johnny Storm cameo, to real dumb. And some of those real dumb ones are fine. They're just fodder to be killed or for action scenes. But to try to get any emotion out of Jennifer Garner as Elektra, it just made me think like there's no like sense of consistency in what they were going for with the cameos. It was really just like a let's get who we can feeling. And like what was it meant to represent? No one liked Elektra. No one liked, very few people liked the Daredevil movie she was in, and then no one liked the Elektra sequel she was in.
I gave it 1 star.
I buy it. I've never seen it in full. All I'm hearing people say is, wow, Jennifer Garner looks good. It's a little bit infantilizing, and almost, I think, like, guys, let's chill out with the Jennifer Garner looks good stuff. Like, great. You're not saying that about Wesley Snipes.
Right.
Speaking of which, why is she appearing next to Wesley Snipes' Blade while he makes jokes about the future of that franchise that is totally up in the air, and then next to Channing Tatum, who's making a completely different joke about a character that never got to be? Now, he's funny.
I did like how you couldn't understand him and all. I thought that was a funny bit that he really committed to.
Yeah, it's good. And I like that the suit on him looks ridiculous. He's totally puffed up and covered up. Like, when I was watching X-Men 97 this year, I remember thinking, how would this have ever worked with Gambit? The outfit doesn't look real. It looks insane. And it did. This has been a very good year for Gambit. Have you watched X-Men 97?
No, but my wife has, and she has really liked it.
The Gambit stuff in X-Men 97 was great. I mean, he really got a chance, that character got a chance to shine there, and then there was this. What's the connection between these three characters? There isn't one. And Deadpool, like, I guess, isn't the movie where to look for that kind of thing.
Mhm.
It made me think of when we were in college. And did Transformers come out while we were in college, the first one? Or any of them?
Yeah, first one was '07. So, I mean, we were
Okay,
out of
so
college by
yeah,
then.
so
Yeah.
shortly after we graduated, but still like pretty early in our friendship, the Transformers
Mm.
movies were coming out, and I remember you being furious at how much you disliked them and how much people were telling you to turn off your brain and just enjoy it.
Although I will add a because I thought the first one was totally fine for a dumb action movie. It's the second one that especially infuriated me.
So that's where this memory of mine comes from then.
Yep.
I'm seeing a lot of that in response to some critics being like, this movie has nothing going for it. I just find like when that's your answer, turn off your brain. Like I turn off my brain at every movie. I'm not doing homework watching movies. I'm there to turn off my brain. It doesn't make me like it more. But you were saying about the cameos not doing much.
Well, yeah, they don't really lead to anything. It's like they're there for a couple minutes and they have a fight scene and then they're just kind of forgotten about. And it's like, so kind of what's the point of doing that? And I know this movie didn't aim as high with like Spider-Man No Way Home, which integrated people from other Spider-Man universes in a much more much more meaningful way into the story, where they had like arcs and redemption and everything. And obviously, like, so I'm not expecting that from this movie, but like they just were kind of there. They popped a quick joke, and then they had a fight scene, and then they were just kind of gone. And there wasn't even like a resolution. Like they didn't even like blow up in a funny way or something. I don't know. They didn't really do anything. And the one problem I actually had with the movie, where I was kind of more irritated than even just like bored or just kind of whatever, was like, I really didn't like that they brought in X-23. I really don't like that they just lumped her in with Elektra and Blade and Gambit and stuff. Like I feel like that character from that movie just kind of deserves more respect than just being lumped in with a couple of joke characters that they brought into this movie to do nothing. And they did kind of give her that one scene where she and Logan are by the fire and she has to remind him like, oh, you were never the right guy until you were at the end. It's like, but they already had like a whole movie where they connected and all this. It's like, so that scene really wasn't necessary. And like in a Deadpool and Wolverine movie, wouldn't it make more sense if like Deadpool is the one who convinced Wolverine he should join them versus I don't know, her involvement in the movie just kind of really rubbed me the wrong way. Like, I mean, Blade, Elektra, sure, like those movies they're long gone. They were not, well, Blades were well received, but like you said, like Elektra, these were poorly received. Sure, use them for a joke, for a punchline, but like Logan is still this like really well received movie that even the Deadpool movie basically reveres. But then they use that character as really nothing in this movie, and I don't know, that really bugged me.
I'm with you, and I'll tell you why it bugs me too. First off, I hadn't even thought of that, so you're making me more angry at the movie. Not because it tarnishes Logan, the movie Logan, but because it rehashes it. It's just doing the same thing over again. It's so lazy. That does more to make Deadpool and Wolverine seem mindless than, or even seem like antagonistic towards Logan. Not in a, we're going to desecrate, like, okay, the opening scene of the movie where Deadpool uses Logan's bones to fight the TVA. Pretty funny. And like, you have to be such a bummer of a person to think this ruined Logan. Like, it's making a joke about how serious Logan was. It's fine. This is a like, that's fine. Mm-hmm. To rehash the relationship between Laura and Logan by that campfire, when that's the exact you're right. She's saying the exact same stuff to him in Logan, in a much better movie. Mm-hmm. Oh, it makes me dislike this more because, for another thing, this movie is long. It did not need more crap in the middle of it. And granted, Hugh Jackman is the best thing about this movie.
By far.
He's basically doing something else. Right? He's like still in Logan, still angry that his friends are dead. By the way, Logan does such a good job of not showing us what happened to the X-Men, but making us feel it. This did a crap. I felt like this Wolverine told us 3 different versions of the same story, and none of them gave me any real idea of what happened to the X-Men.
Yeah.
or why he's so sad about it, or why he's any worse than any of these other Wolverines. Also, why were all the other Wolverines that he found in all of those universes so violent and evil?
Yeah.
Like, why they were evil? What are we supposed to think about these characters? There's just no consistency to any of it. And you made another point kind of offhand, but you were right. Deadpool has nothing to do here. First off, his girlfriend breaking up with him doesn't make any sense. The whole story arc between them in the first 2 movies is that they're obsessed with each other.
Yeah.
That doesn't just go away. I mean, kind of it does, but in a movie it doesn't.
Not in a movie like this. I mean, there's no reason for it to.
Right. He didn't become oh my God. And then he just mopes and finds Wolverine. Now, I'll tell you what I did like, because I feel like I've been complaining a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked both villains in the movie and think they both deserved a better movie.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the dude from Succession, whose name I don't know, but I think is quite hard to say. Um,
Angus McFadden.
oh, is that his name? It's just Angus McFadden? Oh, Matthew McFadden.
Matthew McFadden. Okay, yeah.
So I don't know why I thought his name was so hard to say. So no, not so. Anyway, Matthew McFadden. I liked what he was doing. I thought it was like goofy and fun. I don't think the story between him and the other villain, Cassandra Nova, made a lick of sense. Their relationship, like, I don't know what was going on there. And then she's amazing. She was scary. The way that the choreography around her powers was really cool. She acted the shit out of that movie, and nothing in the void matters. So it sucks that happened. It's like the opposite of most Marvel movies. Usually you have like a pretty good movie saddled with a bad villain. This is a great villain saddled with a pretty weak movie.
Yeah, when she like puts her hands or the fingers, through their skulls and everything, that looked really cool and felt really icky. I mean, you could almost like feel that. It just,
Yeah.
give me the.
I wanted to be anywhere else when that was happening. I really hated it. But even more than that, just her going like this and making people move very quickly, just the very quick, sudden movements of her hand. It's what I really liked about, I can't remember the name of the character from Infinity War, but there's a psychic character in that who works for Thanos who does a very similar thing. And I really like that. This is nothing to me, but it can kill you instantly. I really like those kinds of movements. It's very scary. It's very anime. And I thought that was really well done. There's like little bits of cool stuff here, and it's very funny. And you mentioned like it probably doesn't have much rewatchability for you. I said in my review, I don't think that this will hold up. Luckily, I don't want to watch it again. So not a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I did through all three of them. I think, and you did too. I mean, I watched all three of them in a short span. I'm like, that's a lot of Deadpool. And I like Ryan Reynolds. And like I said, I got a lot of laughs out of all three of them, but it's enough already.
I may be jumping the gun a little bit here, but I said in one of my Deadpool reviews on Letterboxd, one of my first two Deadpool reviews, that it's fun to think of the first two Deadpool movies as happening as the dying thought of the decapitated head of the Deadpool in X-Men Origins Wolverine. Just like a weird fever dream for that guy. But you can't do that with this one. I mean, I guess you could. What difference does it make? It's all stupid.
Yeah. None of it makes any sense.
Yeah, okay. So now that we've been a bummer for a while, there are some good movies that led into this thing. So it's funny. I gave it 3 stars. This is what kills me. Yeah, like it's not bad. There's enough to like. Everyone who likes superhero stuff and has followed this series, you should see it. But and I'll admit this. So I have 2 male friends at work, and I saw it with one of them, and the other one saw it as well. And I heard them talking to each other about the movie. And one of them said, yeah, it's hard to talk to Brad about this stuff because he's such a purist. And I was like, I'm not a purist. The movie's bad.
Yeah.
But it's not bad. It's just mid. It just isn't a movie. It's more like just a series of jokes.
And some of them are very funny. Like I got a lot of laughs out of the movie. I was never bored. Good time at the cinema. But yeah, I can't imagine just sitting at home being like, hey, you want to watch Deadpool and Wolverine tonight? Like,
that's a big part of why I'll never watch it again, because it's never going to match that feeling of seeing it with a ton of people who are also laughing.
Mm-hmm.
I do have to say one more thing about this movie that I didn't like. The Deadpool core, all the alternate Deadpools, that was really stupid.
Why were they fighting real Deadpool? I mean, was there an explanation for that? I feel like I might have missed it, or
I think they worked for Cassandra, but it was really not fleshed out
at all.
Here's what we're going to be doing. We are going to be ranking all of the Deadpool and Wolverine movies, which means every X-Men movie with the exception of First Class, Apocalypse, Dark Phoenix, and New Mutants, because Wolverine is either not in them or he's in them very, very little. And then all 3 Deadpool movies, we'll rank them. Very happy coincidence. That makes 10 movies to rank. So it's nice and satisfying. Should we go in chronological order and just say where all these things land for us?
Yeah.
All right. So number 1, but not number 1 in my ranking or yours, I assume, is X-Men. So this came out in 2000. I think it actually is fair to say that this movie showed that there is an appetite for like real deep comic nerd stuff, that like the cartoons that we watched when we were kids, when millennials were kids, could be popular on the big screen. And X-Men did that. But it's a pretty simple movie. It's a pretty simple story. It's really just Rogue and Wolverine join up with the X-Men, and we sort of see the world through their eyes as they're learning about it for the first time. And then Magneto and his baddies, who kind of don't really have personalities yet, are the antagonists. Where does this rank on your list?
I have this at number 5. It's a 3.5-star movie for me. I do think it's a little simple, but I think it's good. It is the introduction to a lot of people for Hugh Jackman. I mean, he was not really known before he was the Wolverine, so this was kind of a big intro for him, and he really knocks it out of the park on his first try.
I'm with you completely. It's also my number 5. I also gave it 3.5 stars. I think it's pretty good. I think the beginning is much better than the end. Like, all the stuff with Rogue and Wolverine finding each other and then finding the X-Men is pretty gritty, moody, and interesting and deliberately paced. And then it turns into just a regular superhero movie, and unfortunately turns into the template for every superhero movie that would come after that. So while it was very novel at the time, you've seen it. And like a lot of things that sort of trailblazed, it feels very derivative in hindsight, even though it wasn't. Right. And then next came X2. So this was in 2003. Brian Cox joined the cast as the villain Stryker, the recurring villain Stryker, although this is Brian Cox's only appearance as the character. There's a lot of time travel, so we get a bunch of younger versions of him. Well, 2 other younger versions of him. And this time Magneto and the X-Men kind of have to team up. And then there's this great swerve at the end where Magneto turns bad again. And I think this movie absolutely rips. It's my number 2 ranked in the series. I gave it 4.5 stars. It's just everything you want in a sequel. Everything's bigger. Everything's a little bit more in depth. You get more of like what makes Wolverine tick, more Scott and Jean angst. And it feels like an Empire Strikes Back kind of movie too, because it has the sad ending. And it's just a real shame that it couldn't make good on the trilogy. Where do you have X2?
Yeah, I have the same. Again, it's a 4.5-star movie. It's my number 2. The dynamic between, you really get a lot too of Professor X and Magneto in this one as they kind of unite their forces together. But even though they're not, but it's not like a friendly reunion or like a friendly union either. It's not like they don't do an Arnold and Carl Weathers handshake or anything like that. It's a very, kind of tenuous union, and they really do a great job kind of threading that needle throughout the movie. And then the ending is great. It's really, really strong. It's one of the better. Every time people say something stupid like, the sequels are never as good as the original, I'm like, X2, guys. Like, I mean, that's one of the easiest ones.
I think in general, superhero sequels are often better than the original, because the original usually has the baggage of doing the origin story. So that trend in our brain rot superhero era has kind of changed. But yeah, that was something we heard a lot when we were kids. I don't know if that's really a thing anymore.
I still hear it once in a while.
Okay, then. Next chronologically is X-Men The Last Stand, or X-Men 3, which came out in 2006. So they're doing these every 3 years at this point. And things kind of go off the rails a little bit here. Not as much as I think I originally thought when I saw it in theaters. I remember when I saw this in theaters, I was real disappointed. I watched it back a couple years ago and thought, this is not as bad as I remember, but it looks pretty cheap compared to X-Men and X2. The story is really soapy and dramatic. Jean as the Dark Phoenix, we learned through this and the other Dark Phoenix movie, it just doesn't translate to the screen, or no one has been able to do that yet. And then like the end feels like things are really jumping the shark. Like Magneto loses his powers and Jean dies again, and Scott dies in the beginning, and it sort of feels like almost like a nihilistic kind of movie that really didn't work. Oh, and then Xavier dying, I remember being really upset at how they handled him. Yeah, so a lot of that movie really didn't work for me. It was a shock that they basically remade it years later with a different cast, and then that also didn't work, but we're not ranking that one. This is my number 9 out of 10. I gave it 3 stars. Sadly, there are depths deeper to be plumbed by 20th Century Fox X-Men movies, but only one in the movies that we're ranking.
I mean, we're on a roll here because I also have it at 3 stars, and it's my number 9 of the series. And I feel the same. It's not as bad, I think, as its reputation had gotten over the years. We watched them just recently. We watched this trilogy and then the Matthew Vaughn trilogy. We watched them with my kid, who's 12. We watched them with her for the first time. So I've seen them fairly recently. And 3, it's also just a kind of a big step down from 2, because 2 is 2 is awesome. It's classic. And 3, it has some good stuff in it, but it's a big letdown.
It's funny you call it the Matthew Vaughn trilogy. He only directed First Class.
Right. Oh, yeah. Who did... and then Singer came back for the other ones, didn't he?
Singer came back. So we should say Bryan Singer directed X-Men and X-Men 2. Did he do X3? Oh, no. Brett Ratner did 3. That was right.
Ratner. That's right. Why it didn't... Yeah, that's why it fell off.
Bryan Singer had done the first 2. Brett Ratner came in and stunk up the joint with 3. And then Singer came back for Days of Future Past. Now, Bryan Singer, we're not celebrating as a human being, but the dude knew how to make an X-Men movie for a while. Okay, so next chronologically, well, There was a trilogy. There was a
Yes.
second trilogy, and the quality varied a lot. And it started with X-Men Origins Wolverine, and this seemed like it was going to be the start of a lot of different X-Men getting an origin story, but this movie did so poorly that they didn't do any others. So this is a Wolverine origin story directed by Gavin Hood, who most people probably don't know. He directed Ender's Game, another movie that everyone's forgotten about.
It's not bad.
I haven't seen it. I just know that the guy who wrote the original book is a bad dude.
Oh.
I saw this on my laptop because it leaked before it was in theaters. Like a pre-CG version of this movie leaked. And now, having seen the CG version of this movie, I can say, yeah, it's pretty clear they were waiting up to the last minute to finish this thing because it doesn't look done even in its finished form. I also think this is not as bad as its reputation. I don't think it's worth reclaiming. It's not like a total disaster until near the end. Then it really falls apart. But the beginning's all right. The funny thing about X-Men Origins Wolverine, so Hugh Jackman does not have chemistry with any of his female co-stars romantically, except in X-Men Origins Wolverine. It's the only time I bought the relationship between him and the woman in the movie. Unfortunately, the rest of the movie kind of stinks, and we don't really get to know any of the other characters. But what kills me the most about it is that it breaks continuity completely with the rest of the series, and that's very confusing. Like, why would you just decide, okay, Sabretooth and Logan know each other, and there's no explanation as to why Sabretooth doesn't recognize Logan in the first X-Men movie, given that Logan's the one who loses his memory at the end of this movie, but not Sabretooth. And there's other things here that don't make sense for the movies that had come before. So I just don't, I was really frustrated. I remember when I saw it that it was a prequel that made the movies that came before it not make sense, and that those movies were better. And this also ruined Deadpool, quote unquote, but I'm not that attached to, even at the time I wasn't that attached to Deadpool as a character. So I didn't care about that. What I cared about was that it looked bad. So this is my number 10, 2.5 stars. What'd you think?
Also, my number 10, I just have it at 2 stars, so we finally broke just a little bit. I haven't probably seen it since it came out, so I have not revisited it recently. So my rating is based on old information. But like you said, I don't think anyone's out there really reclaiming it or anything.
Yeah, it's not good. No matter how you slice it, it's poor. Then, as you mentioned, Matthew Vaughn made X-Men First Class. Logan is the character of Wolverine is only in this movie for one scene. I think all he does is curse. And then walks off screen
line,
forever. Yeah. So we're not going to mention it, although I think it's fine.
It's cute. It's a fun little bit.
Yeah, I don't think it's as good as people say it is, but it's fine. It's a Matthew Vaughn movie. It doesn't feel like a Matthew Vaughn movie, which is good because a lot of Matthew Vaughn's inclinations are really irritating. He doesn't do them here, with the exception of when he kills off the Darwin character before we even get to know him.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, whatever. Because next, despite the fact that they stopped making origin movies for other characters, they kept the Wolverine origin story going and did the Wolverine in Japan comic arc with The Wolverine. And this was the first time James Mangold directed Hugh Jackman as the Wolverine. I think this movie's really good. I think this is the most underrated of all the X-Men movies. It's like a real samurai movie. It's like a real Chanbara film, super competent, ranging from competent to very excellent director. And here, I don't know. I think everything until the last 30 minutes of the movie when it just falls into typical superhero schlock. I was like, wow, they're doing something different. The bullet train scene is incredible. It's like a real samurai movie. What'd you think of it? Oh, sorry, real quick. It's my number 4, and I gave it 4 stars.
It's also my number 4, and I have it at 3.5 stars. Again, haven't revisited that because when we watched the movies with my daughter, we didn't do the Logan trilogy, mostly because I didn't think she was ready for Logan yet, and also I just plain didn't want to rewatch Origins, so that just kind of left Wolverine in the lurch. And I thought she'd be kind of bored with Wolverine. I just didn't think that would be up her alley yet. So I would like to revisit them at some point this year, but that's neither here nor there. But anyway, yeah, I do remember it being like kind of a cool samurai movie and something different for the series. It didn't feel like any of the other movies that had come before it. And Hugh Jackman, of course, is very good in it. Logan is just such a great part for him, and I really like how he did it. It looks cool. I mean, the set designs are great. It's it's a really unique movie. And when I do watch it, I do want to watch that. What do they call it? What's the extended cut called? I
didn't know there was one.
Oh yeah, I have it.
Of the Wolverine?
Yeah, dog.
Wow, man, I should have watched that instead.
Yeah.
I watched the Rogue cut of X-Men Days of Future Past, which turned out to be kind of stupid. Didn't really add much to the movie. That said, the next movie on the list, chronologically, is X-Men Days of Future Past. So here, they're combining, or really passing the torch from the original cast, from X-Men 1 through 3, to the First Class cast, and Wolverine acts as the bridge because he's now has all his own movies. His brain is elastic enough and heals enough that he can go into the past where the first class cast is. And I think this movie is very good. I think the Xavier stuff in this movie is especially great. He's lost his confidence. He's lost his smile. He's out of the wheelchair, but on drugs and not being a mutant. And so is Beast. Even though the Mystique character kind of feels like in all of these new cast movies, the Mystique character played by Jennifer Lawrence kind of feels like what Rogue would have done in the original series. She was famous, so they had her do that instead. I think it's very good. Like I said, the Xavier stuff is great. Magneto has a cool arc where he's evil. It's actually pretty similar to the X2 arc for Magneto, where he's helping the good guys. He's helping the good guys, but he just can't help himself, and he hates humanity so much because of what he's been through.
He's still a snake, you stupid old man. Still, of course, yeah, he's still a bad guy. He's still going to do bad guy stuff.
Yeah, the fable I know is a frog is helping a scorpion cross the river. The scorpion stings the frog. The frog says, "Why did you do that? We're both going to die." He goes, "I'm a scorpion." But exactly, he can't beat the allegations that he's a mass murderer and tries to. But in the end, he actually doesn't mass murder anyone. He just ruins a baseball stadium. That movie is excellent. The Rogue cut is 10 extra minutes bringing Rogue in. It's dumb. It's not bad. It's just the movie's already quite long and it doesn't need to be longer. But 4 stars, and it's my number 3.
Yeah, also my number 3. I have it at 3.5 stars, but I feel like I might have underrated it because I really like it too. Like I feel like that's low. But also, Peter Dinklage in this. I really like Peter Dinklage. Yeah, it's a cool movie. Although the Logan stuff is cool. Like you mentioned, the Charles Xavier stuff really, really works. And also Michael Fassbender, another guy we're not celebrating personally anymore, but he's really, he plays the Magneto part really, really well. He and James McAvoy, I think the casting on the two of them was just superb.
Yeah, excellent. At least up to this point, kind of goes off, like all things X-Men, goes off the rails after the second one. And also it was, at the time, felt like a send-off to the Wolverine character because Jackman was getting older, and he has a really happy ending in this one where he finally gets to just be an X-Man and have some peace. We'll get back to that in a minute because first, Deadpool comes out, the first Deadpool. I don't know what else to say about the first Deadpool or the second Deadpool. At this point, we'll get to the second Deadpool in a minute, but I think it's pretty good. It's pretty funny. The jokes, honestly, I kind of hold up. I was surprised by that because, especially in the new one, I was like, "Oh, these jokes are so topical." But a lot of them hold up. It's pretty gritty, which was unique at the time. Relatively funny. I gave it 3.5 stars, and it's my number 6.
It is my number 7, but I also have it at 3.5 stars. Yeah, it's funny. It's a little different. You got an R-rated comic book movie. There's since Blade, had there been really a high-profile comic book movie rated R since Blade?
I can't remember, but also I'm not as deep in it as I used to be.
Right.
Probably not.
Fair to say it's the highest profile one since Blade. Even if there had been others, it's certainly the highest profile one since Blade. So it's cool to see that movie do very well. And yeah, it's pretty funny. Again, I've seen it now. I watched a bunch of Deadpool right in a row, so I don't need to rewatch it again for a while. But for what it is, it's really, really well done.
Yeah. Oh, I guess we should. Kick-Ass came out, and that's another Matthew Vaughn movie. So.
Oh yeah. Yep, that counts.
Yeah, whatever. That movie stinks. And then we got Logan. It's just it's a great Western. It's a great movie. I gave it 5 stars. I watched Logan Noir. I gave it 4.5 because I thought while the black and white really accentuated a lot of the movie, it kind of tamped down the excitement of the final scene. The real cut is the color cut, and it's great. 5 stars for me, number 1 by a pretty wide margin. I mean, I really like X2, but I love Logan. It just, every time I see it, I like it more.
Yeah, number 1 for me as well. I have it at 4.5, but it was also an easy choice. Even though I also have X2 at 4.5, it was still an easy choice between 1 and 2 for me. I have not watched the Noir cut, but it's on my list again of things to do. I think when I rewatch the trilogy, I'll watch Origins, and then I'll do the it's called the extended cut of the Wolverine is called the Unleashed Extended Edition. So I'll do that, and then I'll probably do the Noir cut of Logan. But yeah, I mean, it's a great movie. It's Hugh Jackman's best performance in any of the movies. Patrick Stewart is also amazing in it. Oh gosh, what's the girl's name? I mean, she's terrific. The scenes they have together are great. I mean, it's sad. It's great. I mean, yeah, it's an excellent movie. It's number 1. It was easy.
And then next is Deadpool 2, which I have as my number 7, but I also have it at 3.5 stars. And quite frankly, at this point, it's interchangeable with Deadpool 1 for me. I just think they're the same. I mean, look, 3.5 stars. I don't think they're bad. I'm not crapping on it.
I have it at number 6 and 3.5 stars. So like they're literally my 6 and 7 and your 6 and 7. They're just, we have them flip flopped, and I feel the same way. Like, I don't know, pick one. You know, they could be either way.
Yeah, I think what both of these movies do, and the reason that Deadpool and Wolverine is not as effective on the sliding Deadpool scale as Deadpool or Deadpool 2, is that Deadpool has stuff to do in Deadpool and Deadpool 2. Deadpool in the first one, he gets cancer, then he gets ugly, he thinks his girlfriend won't like him, has to come around to the fact that she will. Second one, she dies, he doesn't know how to get to the afterlife with her, he has to do a good thing. Third one, ... multiverse ... I don't know.
Yes. Something TVA timelines.
Bingo. So yeah, that's my number 7. Yeah.
Oh, did we say where we would rate Deadpool and Wolverine?
We didn't, but it hasn't come up chronologically yet, and that's why.
Oh, right. Okay, right. Yeah, it makes sense.
So then Dark Phoenix comes out. We're not going to talk about that. Wolverine is in that, again, just in one scene. He runs around with a goofy thing on his head because that happened in the comic books. New Mutants came out in 2020. That movie is terrible, and there's no Wolverine in it. And then this year, 4 years later, Deadpool and Wolverine comes out. So yeah, it's my number 8, and I gave it 3 stars.
Yeah, same. Also my number 8 and a 3-star movie.
So I don't know what this says about the franchise, that our rankings are basically exactly the same and our ratings are all within, at least they're either the same or within a half star of each other.
Seriously, the only difference we have is we flip-flopped Deadpool 1 and 2 at 6 and 7. I think that's really the only difference we had. And
some of your things, you're a half a star lower than me.
Yeah.
What does that say? Usually we have quite big differences of opinions on these things. I think it says that this is very like low stakes entertainment, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that is what this is, and we should stop getting all worked up over whether or not the Wolverine in the movie Wolverine is wearing shoulder pads. Oh, I have to say one more thing that bothered me about Deadpool and Wolverine. Wolverine puts on his mask, and everyone cheers because that's what he looked like in the comics and the cartoon. It looked stupid. That's why it wasn't in the other movies. It looks bad. All right.
Yeah, I saw articles like grown men on set were like crying when they saw it, and
there's no way that's true. That is a lie for marketing. All right. Anything else you want to say about this hopefully now finished franchise?
No, it's there's certainly a lot of things, a lot of fun to be had with it. Like I said, the Deadpool series certainly offers a lot of yucks. A lot of good in that, and then Logan and the Wolverine certainly offer something different, I think, than the rest of the series. And X2 is certainly a high point, and certainly one that you'd point to. Like if I'm making a list of kind of top comic book movies, I think X2 is going to be up there, and like Logan's going to be up there. So yeah, I mean, there's certainly some really high points that the series hit, and then it also hits some pretty low points too. So really a mixed bag, but some really worthwhile stuff in there, and some really well done stuff. Oh, and I should mention too, I usually talk about Oscars on our podcast. Of all 10 of these movies, there's only one Oscar nomination between them. Do you know what it is?
Screenplay for Logan?
Yep, adapted screenplay for Logan, which is great. I'm just thrilled that it managed that. I was hoping Hugh, there was some noise that Hugh might get one for actor, but it didn't materialize. But I'm happy with the screenplay nomination. I think that's cool.
Man, everyone in Logan is so good. He's great. Patrick Stewart is great. Daphne Keane is the name of the X-23 that we couldn't remember. And Boyd Holbrook's really good as the villain, as like the smarmy henchman. He was much better than Richard E. Grant, who really wasn't given, to be fair to him, wasn't given a ton to do. And the family that plays the family that got sacrificed, they're very good. And like that's a very Western trope that like the hero comes to town and his presence there ruins someone's life. Man, Logan is a great movie.
Oh, absolutely. It's a killer.
So I don't know. The MCU trudges on, and we know that Kelsey Grammer's Beast will at least continue on because it has already in the Marvels. One assumes this is where I don't get if Deadpool is continuing in any way, though, because the story of Deadpool versus Wolverine has him back in the 20th Century Fox universe. So we know these universes are all going to collide for Secret Wars, but maybe it'll just be at the end. I don't know. I sadly, I don't care, but I will see the movies anyway.
Maybe it'll be Loki season 3,
All right, next week we're back to our regularly scheduled program with a look at the movies of 2011.